All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we have a lot to talk about today. First of all, it looks like rookie defensive tackle, Johnny Newton may make his debut against the Giants. I'm going to explain why I feel that way. Also, is Jayden Daniels the second fastest player in the NFL? We're going to take a look at those stats. Also, Terry and Kayvon Thibodeau talking trash, not necessarily at each other, but Terry talking trash about the Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau talking trash about us, and we can't forget what Deontay Banks was saying about the Commanders and Terry McLaurin last year. We're going to revisit that, and then I have a lot of random stats as well that should have you very optimistic heading into this game against the Giants. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned. As always, you know I will be live streaming that game tomorrow, so make sure you pull up for that live stream all 4 quarters. And I already did a video yesterday breaking down the things that I'm watching for the most, the specific matchups, the specific players, the specific position groups that I'm going to have my eye on and analyzing and breaking down for y'all, along with my play-by-play analysis that I will do tomorrow. So make sure you pull up for that. And of course, man, stay tuned because I will be live streaming every regular season game. And, you know, let's hope we can speak it into existence every postseason game as well. But let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, this whole Johnny Newton thing came from the fact that, you know, and I told y'all this yesterday, that come Saturday, based on the guys that they sign or bring up from the practice squad, that's going to be an indication of who may or may not play that we normally expect to play, because I gave y'all the injury report yesterday as well, and we looked at who's questionable, who's out, who's good to go, things like that. The practice squad signings and upgrades today tell all. So first of all, the Commanders signed linebacker Nick Bellore from the practice squad. That's a special teams guy. They also elevated cornerback Bobby Price and defensive end Carlos Watkins from the practice squad, just to let you know. Now let's dive into it. Nick Bellore, again, is a really good special teams guy. I know you hear linebacker, but just think of him as a special teams guy, and it's pretty much just that simple. We can move on. Then Bobby Price is being brought up because of the loss of Emmanuel Forbes. Obviously, Noah Igbinoghene and Michael Davis will actually get the snaps that Forbes left behind after getting the thumb surgery. I believe it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. But Bobby Price will move up to basically where week 1 Michael Davis was last week. Week 2 Michael Davis will move up to where week 1 Noah Igbinoghene was, and then Noah Igbinoghene, week 2 version, will move up to where week 1 Emmanuel Forbes was, because he was the one getting the snaps when Emmanuel Forbes was coming in and out of the game, whether it was due to him being benched or rotation, whatever it was. Either way, Noah Igbinoghene was the one getting those snaps out there with Benjamin St-Juste. Michael Davis never played, so I'm assuming Benjamin St-Juste was on the field as much as possible. Emmanuel Forbes played quite a bit. Noah Igbinoghene played quite a bit. And so with him basically being right behind Emmanuel Forbes on the depth chart, Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, and Noah Igbinoghene as far as snaps went last week. With Forbes gone, I'm assuming Noah Igbinoghene is going to be that starting corner opposite of Benjamin St-Juste, even though I feel like Michael Davis makes more sense. But again, he didn't play a single snap last week. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they're not very high on Michael Davis. But either way, the Johnny Newton point, because they're bringing up Carlos Watkins, who is a defensive end, over like a defensive tackle like Sheldon Day, who's already on the practice squad. They could have brought him up. And a defensive end makes sense because Clelin Ferrell was not a participant in yesterday's practice on Friday due to his knee injuries that he's dealing with. So they brought up a defensive end to basically, again, just like the Noah Igbinoghene, everybody moving up. Even though he elevated Bobby Price, it's not a direct Bobby Price coming in to replace Emmanuel Forbes. Same thing. We're not bringing in Carlos Watkins to replace Clelin Ferrell. It's just everybody else moves up because Clelin Ferrell looks like he more than likely will not play against the Giants. So that everybody elevates, and then Carlos Watkins comes in for that last spot that is now empty after everybody moves up. But the main point is they elevated a practice squad defensive end over a practice squad defensive tackle. Again, a guy like Sheldon Day, who I want to emphasize was brought up to play last week. Johnny Newton didn't play last week, so they brought Sheldon Day up from the practice squad to be ready to play last week. They didn't do that this week. Instead, they went with a defensive end instead of doing both, which sounds like, okay, Carlos Watkins is an indication that Clelin Ferrell will more than likely not play. But the fact that Sheldon Day, instead of bringing him up at defensive tackle, it sounds like Johnny Newton will more than likely make his rookie debut. This hasn't been officially announced, but if you're just putting the clues together, sounds like Johnny Newton will play. Of course, from the practice report, the injury report that we got yesterday, Clelin Ferrell did not participate in practice yesterday. Of course, Emmanuel Forbes didn't either. And then as far as limited goes, you have Quan Martin, which is concerning. That's very concerning in the secondary because they didn't look good last week. And I feel like with time, with chemistry gained, with communication getting better and things like that, I think our secondary will improve mightily. I don't think they're just lacking talent like at a severe level or anything like that, like most fans probably do. But at the same time, if Quan Martin's hurt and the secondary already didn't look good last week, and I'm not expecting them to do a full 180 and be good this week, I'm expecting them to eventually be fairly good some point in the middle of the season once we finally get that nuanced chemistry and all of that stuff going. But week 2, with Quan Martin banged up, I don't know, man. That is looking a little scary. But my main point is Johnny Newton was also limited as well. He didn't participate in practice on Wednesday, and he was limited Thursday and Friday. Maybe that's enough for them to give him the green light. If just looking at that injury report alone, I wouldn't assume that Johnny Newton would play until I saw the practice squad moves that they made. And again, they elevated a guy on the practice squad to take the place of the loss of what we're losing in Clelin Ferrell. They didn't do the same thing for Johnny Newton. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that they did that last week. They made sure they brought in Sheldon Day because they did not plan on playing Johnny Newton. This time they didn't elevate Sheldon Day. So that is a strong indication that Johnny Newton more than likely will make his rookie season debut, but don't be surprised if for any reason that he doesn't. So I'm not saying that it's a guarantee. That's why I put a question mark in the title, but just putting 2 and 2 together, looks like Johnny Newton may eventually make the practice, actually end up making his debut. Now moving on, I do not want y'all to forget about last year when Maryland cornerback Deonte Banks, local guy, when he was saying F the Commanders, and then he was asking, did 17 play today? And I don't even think Terry McLaurin's the type of guy that even talks the type of trash to even warrant that type of response after a game. And I also feel like it wasn't even necessarily like Deonte Banks was just super shutting down Terry McLaurin. I feel like it was more so bad quarterback play, bad protection, bad defensive coordinator more than anything else. But either way, he directed his trash talk directly at the Commanders, mostly because he felt like we should have drafted him over Emmanuel Forbes, especially with him being a local guy. We brought him in for a visit and everything like that. Rivera and company probably talked his head up and told him that they really liked him and maybe planned on drafting him. And then he started to get the visions of, ooh, I get to play for my hometown team in front of my family and friends and everything, every home game and stuff like that. He probably started to have those playing for my hometown team visions at the NFL level type of thing, which is a magical thing. That's like Disney movie level stuff right there. And then once it came crashing down because we elected to not draft him, but to still take a corner instead of him, like the same position, but a different corner other than him, I'm not surprised that he holds a grudge against us. I'm not surprised at all, but I was surprised last year when he directed the trash talk at Terry McLaurin, because Terry McLaurin just doesn't seem like that type of guy that would necessarily warrant that type of trash talk. But either way, if you don't remember, here's a short clip of him talking trash to Terry McLaurin after that Giants victory last year.
Should have came and got. I'm just trying to figure out though. Did 17 play today? That's all I want to know. Did he play today? Did he play? I just want to know if he played.
Oh, they watched that Joe.
But now this time around, Terry McLaurin, because he received an early birthday gift from the Commanders social media team. Shouts out to them. They literally handed him a gift after practice this week. And, you know, it's like a whole clip of him saying a lot of things, thank you and things like that. But he pulled out like a little stuffed ghost toy little thing. He said it's going to be scary this weekend. And I like that. I like the play on words. I like the fact that he's, you know, we're seeing a little trash talk from Terry McLaurin. It was super humble too. It was super like straight face. He didn't even give it like much of like emphasis or a whole bunch of passion behind it. He just said it's going to be scary this weekend. Basically, he's about his business, and I'm really excited to hear that. And so are we about to see a Terry McLaurin revenge game against Deonte Banks? I really hope so. Is he about to drop like 100 yards plus 2 touchdowns against them or something like that? I'm really excited because you got to remember, he was talking crazy last year. Deonte Banks was talking crazy, and I felt like Terry McLaurin, even though they were matched up against each other quite a bit, I still feel like that was more so catching a stray, because I feel like Deonte Banks' rage and hate was more so towards the Commanders not drafting him than Terry McLaurin himself. Terry McLaurin was just caught in the crossfire. But either way, I love the fact that it sounds like that Terry McLaurin is motivated. That's what it sounds like, and I refuse to believe. I just refuse. I'm sorry. Maybe it's just blind hope, but I refuse to believe that we hire yet another offensive coordinator that will continue to ignore Terry McLaurin's existence. So I expect him to get definitely more targets than he got last week. I'm hoping way more. Now moving on, Kayvon Thibodeau of the New York Giants, the edge rusher, who has been like a thorn in our side for the past couple of years. Remember, this guy has 15.5 sacks in his career. 5.5 of those are against us alone, just us. Like, we make Kayvon Thibodeau look way better than he actually probably is, especially Charles Leno specifically, but now Charles Leno is gone. But either way, a couple of days ago, Kayvon Thibodeau was asked about the Commanders in the upcoming game that we have on Sunday. And somebody asked something about a rivalry. He said, quote, I would say Washington in particular, they're not really a rival, but they are in conference. They're in the same division, so it's always going to be a great game. We see them twice a year, so I'm excited, unquote. But I mean, you can definitely hear the little bit of slick talk in there. Like, that was a slight shot right there. Like, he went out of his way to say that they're not a rival in particular. Like, we're naturally rivals because we play each other twice a year, and basically he's saying, nah, they're not good enough to be considered a rival. That's basically what he meant there. Kind of cleaned it up towards the end with saying, like, it's a division game, it's gonna be a great game, see them twice a year, I'm excited, and things like that. But you can see what he was doing there. But at the same time, man, I mean, why wouldn't he talk trash to us, man? We haven't beaten them since 2022, man. They won 3 games, we tied 1, but we haven't beaten them since 2022, basically. And I feel like he has the right to talk, because again, we have not beaten them since 2022, and they've been sorry. Let's not get it wrong. They have been sorry, and they pretty much can't really beat anybody else but us. And I know that if they know that they're sorry, I'm pretty sure he knows that they're not a very good team either. So why would he have any respect for us if he knows that his team is not good and they still keep beating us? Again, have beat us 3 times and tied with us the last 4 matchups. It's been since 2022. Technically, that was like late of the 2021 season, but it, like, calendar year wise, it was technically 2022. I think all the way back in January since the last time we beat them. But I do want to point out the fact that this is not a Rivera team anymore. So I hope you're ready to back that up, Kayvon. And this is not Charles Leno anymore either. This is Brandon Coleman, I believe. I'm hoping that he starts. Now, moving on, I also have some random stats that are pretty exciting. First of all, according to Next Gen Stats, only 2 players have hit over 20 miles per hour or faster on a run so far this season. So that's anybody that technically, like, ran the ball. That's not like Tyreek Hill catching the ball 10 yards down the field and then taking off for the last 50. That we're talking about just running backs, quarterbacks, or anybody that, like, pretty much takes a handoff out of the backfield and runs it themselves. You have James Cook, a Georgia dog. You know, we can't skip that. Anytime a Georgia dog is balling out, we're going to sit here and acknowledge it for at least 10 seconds. But right now, it's James Cook and Jayden Daniels. That's it. Those are the only 2 ball carriers out of the entire NFL last week to hit 20 miles per hour or more on a run. So it sounds like Jayden Daniels is one of the fastest players in the NFL. But I already warned y'all about this, because way back in July, somebody pointed out the fact that Jayden Daniels had a top speed in 2023, his college season with LSU, against the Florida Gators specifically, where he ended up reaching 21.8 miles per hour on one of those long runs for a touchdown. Tyreek Hill's top speed in 2023 during the NFL regular season was 22 miles per hour. So Jayden Daniels is only 0.2 miles per hour slower, or I can't even say slower, less ridiculously fast than Tyreek Hill. Also need to point out the fact that even though Tyreek Hill didn't go to Georgia, the university, born and raised Georgia talent. You know what I'm saying? I gotta throw that in there, man. But out of the way, Jayden Daniels, it sounds like from a bunch of different metrics, no matter how you look at it, he's one of the fastest players in the entire NFL. And even with knowing that stat coming into that game against the Buccaneers, he still looks faster than I expected when he was actually out there running the ball. Looked like he was playing at a different speed from everybody else, man. Speaking of Jayden Daniels, Pro Football Focus does their weekly fantasy football stardom and sit-ems and things like that. With Jayden Daniels, they said start him. They said Brock Purdy, start him. They said Jared Goff, start him. They said Jayden Daniels, start him as well. They said Daniels scored the third most fantasy points among quarterbacks last week after turning 16 carries into 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Commanders are facing the New York Giants defense that allowed 5.1 rushing yards per attempt to quarterbacks last season, which was the fourth most among defenses. That's a really interesting stat to keep in mind going into this game as well. But I do want to point out the fact that they only picked 3 quarterbacks to say start. They have a few quarterbacks to say bench. They say bench Joe Burrow, bench Aaron Rodgers, bench Justin Herbert, and then everybody else is just not even included in the article. The only 3 starts are Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, and Jayden Daniels. So that sounds like excellent company. It sounds like they love that matchup. Also, Pro Football Focus Fantasy and Betting did this graphic right here, where they have the best wide receiver matchup advantages. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown versus the Buccaneers. They have CeeDee Lamb versus the Saints, Brandon Ayuk versus the Vikings, AJ Brown, even though he's hurt right now, versus the Falcons, and he sounds like he's questionable. Not exactly sure if he'll end up playing. But Terry McLaurin versus the Giants is 4th on that list, ahead of AJ Brown versus the Falcons, ignoring injury. So, hey man, maybe Terry McLaurin will in fact eat up. Also, I want to point out the fact that Brian Robinson had the highest receiving grade among all running backs in the NFL in week 1 with a 93.9. Electric, man. Yards after contact, yards after catch, all of that. Elite. Shouts out to Austin Ekeler for blocking his tail off of a bunch of those plays as well. And also, shouts out to Mason Kinahan for pointing out the fact that he also ranked 3rd in yards per route run as well. I've been telling y'all all offseason, all summer, do not sleep on Brian Robinson, the receiving back. He's a great in between the tackles guy, even though I would love it if he improved his vision a little bit. He's not perfect with the vision, but he's very strong. He always falls forward, typically going to make the first guy miss, usually by breaking a tackle. He's gonna, always churn out extra yards beyond what he actually should have gotten based on what the blocking gave him. But receiving back wise, stop sleeping on him, man. And to be the highest graded running back receiving wise in week 1, I'm not necessarily saying he's the best receiving back in the NFL, but I'm not very surprised here. You saw the flashes even in that Eric Bieniemy offense last year when he was having explosive plays in the run game. So expect more of that from Brian Robinson. Expect Cliff Kingsbury to take advantage of that. We had some plays last week against the Buccaneers where both Brian Robinson and Austin Ekeler were on the field at the same time. I want to see more of that, please. Now, moving on, we also have some random updates like Bucs linebacker Levante David was fined $11,255 for an unnecessary roughness face mask on a play against Austin Ekeler in the 4th quarter. And I do want to let you know that this was not penalized. The refs missed this, but the refs always miss calls where people penalize us, but they don't call it face mask, whatever. It is what it is. But at least the people went back and watched it, the NFL review people, and were like, yeah, that's worthy of a fine. And it's crazy though, because Antoine Winfield, who was called for a penalty for an unnecessary roughness in the 2nd quarter on Jayden Daniels when Jayden Daniels' helmet fell off, that penalty was called on the field, but he was not fined. So it's even more ridiculous that the Levante David penalty was not fined as well. And shouts out to Nikki Javala. If you want to see that exact play, she uploaded the clip on her Twitter, but I don't want to upload it here just in case, monetary reasons, they come and attack my YouTube channel and things like that. So I don't even want to risk it. I'm sorry. Also, shouts out to Jordan Reed for pointing out the fact that there were 13 NFL teams in attendance at the LSU South Carolina game, and we were one of them. And so are we potentially looking at Will Campbell, who has not had a good start to the season, at left tackle potentially, or maybe you draft him to be right tackle because you already have your answer at left tackle for Brandon Coleman. I feel like our biggest needs right now going into the offseason, though, I would say easily outside corner. And then maybe you want to look at some edge rusher talent, maybe still some offensive lineman talent, maybe to potentially replace Andrew Wiley at right tackle or something like that. But I think our biggest need right now is outside corner. So maybe that's more than likely the main reason that we went. But at the same time, man, I mean, we got to be looking at freshman edge rusher Dylan Stewart, man. I mean, are we looking at him potentially for the 2027 draft? True freshman, man. That guy has been different. He's from the DC area too, so I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all are already probably familiar with him, or if you're not, make sure you go check him out. That true freshman edge rusher from South Carolina. I've been keeping track of him since the whole recruiting process. Y'all know I'm heavy into recruiting. I'm all the way into the 2026, 2027 recruiting classes already, especially in the Georgia area. I watch high school games, I watch huddle tape, all of that type of stuff. So I was already on the Dylan Stewart. I didn't expect him to come out and already be one of the best edge rushers in college football immediately as a true freshman. But I'm not surprised that he's going to end up a really good edge rusher. He's a 5-star for a reason, man. And again, he's from the DC area, so if you're not familiar with him, and I know y'all love y'all own and stuff like that, make sure you go support him, man, because he's over there with Nicholas Harbor as well, another guy from the DMV area that's on South Carolina that's a 5-star athletic freak. So South Carolina's doing a good job of pulling those DMV guys. So if Maryland's not winning games, when in doubt, go watch South Carolina games and root for them to win, because they have two great DMV guys that are going to go very high in the 2026 draft and Nicholas Harbor, 2027 draft and Dylan Stewart, and hopefully the Commanders will be the people that try to get them. Even though I hope that we're not in a situation where we even drafted high enough to get those two elite players, because I think both of those guys have top 10 pick talent coming up in their respective drafts. Also, shouts out to Matt Miller, because he pointed out the fact that the 2027 NFL draft class at wide receiver will probably be the best ever, man. And maybe we need to look at some of that as well. I mean, just Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams alone, ridiculous. Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, Ryan Williams from Alabama. Again, not surprised with as much as I'll look into high school recruiting and things like that. I'm not the least bit surprised that these guys have had the debuts that they've had. Dylan Stewart, I didn't necessarily expect it to be this quick. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, I knew day one they would come out balling, man. And that man, Ryan Williams, mind you, moved up a recruiting class. Like, the fact that he's doing this as a true freshman that's technically supposed to be a high school senior right now is insane. He literally basically like skipped a grade, went ahead and just moved up to the 2024 recruiting class. He was originally in the 2025. It's amazing what he's doing after that. And then Jeremiah Smith, I would say, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver high school recruit prospect I've seen in double-digit years, dog. I'm not exaggerating, man. I know we've seen Marvin Harrison Jr., we've seen guys like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, all of these guys, even Paris Campbell coming out of the college, or Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have all of these greats. I mean, Ohio State has the lock. They are wide receiver university right now. I would say Jeremiah Smith was the best out of all of those guys coming out of high school. We'll see what happens in college, but coming out of high school, that guy's the scariest guy I've probably seen coming out of high school since Julio Jones, and that's scary. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stick on that like button, stick on the subscription button, stick on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. Of course, pull up for that upcoming Giants game stream. I will be doing like a lot of play-by-play, but of course I will be analyzing a lot of specific things as well. Again, I did a whole video, and towards the end of my video yesterday, breaking down exactly what I will be watching for the most in that matchup, and what I feel like y'all should be watching for as well, especially as far as like long-term success goes. If we're finding our answers at certain positions, certain matchups and things like that, what will basically be our keys to victory against the Giants. So make sure you go check out that video from yesterday as well if you haven't already seen it. And then of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video, about Johnny Newton potentially making his rookie debut. How much do you feel like he should play? Should he be on some type of like load management minutes restriction type of thing? Play a little bit, but don't play too much, especially since he hasn't even had a full practice yet so far. He missed the entire offseason, all of training camp, basically the entire preseason, all of that type of stuff. Let me know how you feel about that. Let me know how you feel about the whole trash talking going on from Deonte Banks last year, Terry McLaurin this year, Kayvon Thibodeau this year. Let me know how you feel about all of the stats that I brought up about Jayden Daniels being one of the fastest players in the entire NFL. All of that, and I really appreciate y'all. Again, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.